Hello and welcome to Who Are You? It's a Babylon 5 watchcast by a couple of former strangers, now friends, who are continuing to get to know each other over one of their favorite shows from their childhood, Babylon 5. I'm Laura.
And I'm Xhafer.
And today we're going to recap Season 3.
We've already done 3 seasons of this show, Laura.
I know.
Time is a fickle mistress.
Yeah, tell me about it. Especially right now.
Soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that this is 20-something episodes a season. Like, we've been releasing, well, when this releases, we'll have been releasing episodes for over a year and a half.
That's true, yeah.
So that's a thing.
We've gotten into a really good part of the show.
Oh, the best part of the show.
Yeah.
100%. Season 3, I would say front half of season 4 is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
This back half season 3, front half season 4 is just the best this show is. Which is not to say that there aren't good episodes on their way past that or stinkers in the middle of it all. Because there have been and there will continue to be.
Yeah, spoilers.
But just overall, fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah, this one is I had no trouble making my notes to kind of recap the season. That went fine. But when we got to the part where we kind of rank and rate some things, that got really hard because there's so much good stuff in here.
Yes. And this is also the last season that's not compressed. We should probably talk about that a bit because it really impacts next season. Well, the rest of the show, really. Because the 5-year plan for Babylon 5, in year 4, P10, the network that Babylon 5 was on, starts to go under.
Mm-hmm.
And so season 4 is seasons 4 and 5 compressed into one season.
Yeah.
And so the pacing dramatically changes instantly once we hit season 4.
Yeah. And I remember even when I was watching it the first time, feeling that compression. And it feeling weird. And I bet it's going to feel really weird in a streaming environment.
It does. Having rewatched the show in 2019 and 2020, I was aghast at when the end of the Shadow War happens.
Mm-hmm. It's a really weird spot, right?
It felt awkward. It felt very this is happening. Some things start to align and you're just oh, this is it. This is the end. And then it's over. And you're just what episode am I on? And you check and you're just fuck, really?
So fast. It felt longer in, the broadcast TV environment.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a kid and you're having to wait a whole week, to find out what's happening. And you think on the episode for the whole week,
Mm-hmm.
You kind of live in it, the last episode. But yeah, in streaming, when you can just binge it, so fast.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it goes so quick. All right. What was your favorite episode of this season?
Oh, this was so hard.
It was.
This was hard to choose. I had several candidates written down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think... And I'm curious. I'm really curious because, we've been recording things a lot ahead. And, it's been obviously a bit since we recorded some of these, since, 23 episodes in a season.
Yeah.
I'm curious if my picks actually line up with what I said when we reviewed the episode. Looking back over it. I thought about it and I think I'm going to go with Dust to Dust.
Dust to Dust. All right.
Because it does have some of that telepath stuff in it that I find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Bester. We love Bester in it. And then we had that whole interesting experience that Jakar had using the dust and then getting touched by a Vorlon.
Yeah.
So I think, it's maybe not the flashiest episode. We had War Without End, and those were both fantastic storytelling episodes, but I really liked the way things came together in Dust to Dust and all of the elements that we got within it. So that was my pick for favorite episode, but I had a few other contenders. What about your pick?
It would be very easy, especially after my pontification about how great War Without End is, to just say it as my pick. But it is a two-parter, and I don't want to pick one or two. I feel like you need them both together. And so I am using this logic to disqualify that from my options.
Okay.
Also, it's more fun to pick something else, I feel. There are other episodes this season that are great, and War Without End is it's parts 2 and 3 of my favorite three-parter in all of television. I just remember being absolutely wowed by it on first viewing in a way that, I know I can never experience again.
Yeah.
My favorite episode of the season this watch through that wasn't War Without End was Passing Through Gethsemane.
Okay. Yeah, that's another strong contender, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really good fucking episode. And Brad Dourif is just so fucking good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's what I'll go with. I did flip through, I'm sure I've talked about this before. I keep paper notes for every episode of the podcast.
Right.
And so I have all of my season 3 notes in the same notebook, and I was able to just kind of flip through them while preparing for this today. And there's a lot of really good episodes, but Passing Through Gethsemane is the only one where in the note where I make my rating section, I just wrote 5 out of 5. Fuck, this episode is so good. That's literally the only note I gave myself to record. Yeah. And I'm just all like, okay, I remember feeling that. That's going to be the one.
Yeah, that is a strong episode. The other ones I had written down, I had And the Rock Right Out, because there were strong moments in that. Point of No Return was another strong one that I liked.
It's the name of the season episode.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be a strong episode, right? Okay, well, if we talked about our favorites, let's flip the coin. Yep. What is your least favorite episode, Xhafer?
Honestly, I flipped through when I was going through my notes. I'm trying to there's a couple that I really didn't like. And I think the one that if you were to tell me I'm rewatching season 3 tomorrow, and I only have 23 hours or whatever, I have to skip one episode in season 3.
Yeah, I like that.
And that's the thing. I have to watch it all, but you've got to skip one. I'm skipping Ceremonies of Light and Dark.
Oh, okay.
Because honestly, I mean, the terrorist stuff and the shooter plot and everything just kind of hits a bit different. And did I tell you about the scare I had outside the movie theater a couple months ago?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, man. Okay, so Beth and I went and saw a movie. And when we walked out of the theater, in between some cars right in front of the theater, there was a guy with an assault rifle and a ski mask and full tack gear. And we beelined away, got behind some concrete in a parking garage, and called the cops. He was a security guard.
What?
Just wasn't labeled, right? And it was just a crazy moment. And so obviously everything was okay. Nothing happened besides the cops bothering this guy for being an idiot for not wearing a security thing, I hope.
Well, and why does security need an assault? I don't know. We're living in a very weird time.
Yeah.
Especially the time that we're recording this.
Yeah. Don't go to that theater anymore. But yeah. So especially that experience in my life reflecting on this episode in particular has just made me go I emotionally don't want to deal with this episode.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's fair to call it my least favorite for that reason, but it's definitely the one I'm not revisiting anytime soon.
Yeah, least favorite is hard terminology in this season because so much of it was so strong. Even the episodes that had a weak, A plot, if you will, there was something interesting going on in the B plot or in the background.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about it. Grey 17 is the famous stinker from this season.
Yeah.
And even that was a strong 35, 40 minutes of TV, Scott was saying.
It just kind of fell apart in a weird way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the idea of Grey 17 is Missing is actually pretty good. It was just some execution things that just didn't work in the end. So, yeah. If I had to pick a least favorite, using the air quotes around that, I think I would go with Walkabout.
That's,
But just because the the messaging was kind of weird, and it played really strange because, we've been told that he's got this bad addiction, but in Walkabout, we don't really see it having any consequences on him yet.
Yeah. It
him being
feels
Franklin.
weirdly paced and timed, knowing how the rest of that storyline goes.
Uh-huh. And I really, in my mind, had Walkabout having more of the feel that we got from Franklin's character in Shadow Dancing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was much more interesting in my mind that way than the episode that Walkabout was. So that would be if I only have 22 hours or whatever to watch the season, I would skip Walkabout.
Fair enough. And then our last of the 3 episode picks that we do every one of these is our underdog pick. The one that you were not excited to watch before you watched it, and then it ended up surprising you and you actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, this one was really hard for me because I don't know that I had that feeling of not excitement to watch any episode in season 3.
Oh, I did.
You did? Okay, well, you go first then. Tell me about it.
I think I said this in the episode too. A Late Delivery from Avalon.
Oh, okay.
Was
I
one
could
that
see that.
I remembered not liking. Even in my most recent watch through, I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But actually sitting down with it, taking a more critical eye to it, and then also, the context of under which I watched it, which was writing notes for a comedy podcast. So that changes your lens when you're viewing something, knowing I'm going into it to make some jokes. You appreciate some of the moments of levity differently when you're not sitting there like, oh, get through this because you didn't want to watch it, So I definitely say A Late Delivery from Avalon won me over this time compared to previous watchings.
I mean, I unashamedly loved A Late Delivery from Avalon the whole time. That was one of my favorites as a child, and I was excited to watch it again. So I can't underdog that one. But I can see why it was for you. I think, if I have to pick an underdog, I think maybe Convictions was one I didn't feel as excited about.
Okay.
The bomber plots, again, kind of like the shooter plot that you pointed out in Ceremonies of Light and Dark. Sometimes they just hit a little weird.
Yeah.
Especially, that what year did this come out? Was it 90?
Season 3 was 96.
Okay, so 95 and 96. So that was a point in time in 95 that Oklahoma City went through a big one of those, a big bombing plot. So I don't know, just knowing that this was in the zeitgeist and being talked about at the same time is kind of a weird feeling for me. So not excited about Convictions bomber plot, but it also has in it the, little B story about Jakar and Londo being stuck in the elevator.
Yeah.
And we get to see that dynamic, and it sets up a big character change for Jakar, because we see him just cackling with delight over Londo's imminent demise, and not minding that it also means his own imminent demise. And then he changes a lot by the end of the season. So I think for me, Convictions surprised me a little bit, and I would call it an underdog for that.
All right. So we haven't done this before, but we were talking about it, doing a little recap of the races. So just kind of where we're at right now with all of the major galactic players.
Yeah. To set that stage a little bit for season 4.
Yeah. Because it's very, very important going forward.
Yeah.
So season 3, the Narn are defeated, remain defeated, remain occupied, and the big change for them over this course of the season was definitely in Jakar. As their leader, he got solidified in that role. It feels like season 2, he got challenged a lot more, and then by the time season 3 was coming around, that was over.
Yeah,
definitely
he's
by
really
the end
grown
of the season.
into it.
And then his change through his experience in Dust to Dust changes the trajectory of the entire species.
Yeah. And we actually get to see, Narn homeworld on the ground a little bit at the end of the season, and the rock cried out. We see some of that like redness to the air, the actual devastation on the ground. We see a little bit of the like tunnels that they're kind of having to resort to moving around in because it's not safe to breathe outside. So we get a better feel for what the mass driver meant. You know, there was a lot of telling us about what mass drivers do, and now we got to see a little bit of showing. I still would have loved to see more, but that's something that we could get today with our computer graphics and such, but maybe not as much back then. And then the flip side of the coin would be what's going on with the Centauri.
Yeah.
So I think that what we're told about the Centauri or what we see about the Centauri happens a lot through the Rifa-Londo conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see a lot of that like instability, these old powers still jockeying for positions. We know there's a new emperor because Emperor Turin was passed away in a previous season, but we haven't met the new emperor yet.
No, we haven't met Cartagia yet, but we've heard his name now.
Yeah.
We know he's in charge, so.
We get some of the like real flavor for that old civilization through Lindisty in the season 2. Yeah.
I had forgotten about Lindisty.
Yeah. I couldn't. She really gives us that nasty racist flavor. And then we see that it's not just like an attitude that's being espoused by Londo, because we've seen Londo espouse this attitude, and we've also seen Veer kind of push back on it a little bit. But then we get this outside character entirely who is a, very pretty young lady who has some really ugly ideas.
Yes. She is we don't do a worst character, but
yeah, we could have though, right?
She'd be near the top of that list for me.
Yeah, she's a special kind of evil. And
yes. Yeah, the so evil I didn't notice I was evil. The Captain Crunch oops all evil.
Definitely.
Of personality types. Ugh.
I think she's a great example, though, if you wanted to like sum up the Centauri race really quickly, which I think maybe JMS was trying to do that, like give us a quick summation of everybody else outside of Londo and Veer. What's the mood on the ground like? Lindisty. She's it.
Ugh. That would bring us over to, we can talk about the Minbari.
Sure.
The Minbari, low key, a lot happened for nothing happening this season.
Yeah.
There's a lot of set staging for the Minbari for future storyline, about the attitudes and the changes in their culture coming out of season 2 with the Great Council disbanding, which I think was at the end of season 2.
I think so. I think at this point we have that internal division already throughout season 3.
Yeah. If not, it was very early season 3. But it's just it's about the wedge that's being driven in their culture between the religious and the warrior caste. And so we get a little bit of background on those things that are happening here and there.
We get a lot of origin story for the Minbari.
Yes, we do get. Yes, we get a very important piece of their the most important piece of their history.
Indeed, we find all about Minbari Jesus.
Yeah, we know him a little bit better than you expected.
Yeah. And that origin story too, we find out, more about what the first Shadow War was like. So we get not only Minbari stuff, but we find out a little more about the first ones because we know about Vorlon involvement with the Minbari way back. And then we also know what the Shadows were kind of up to because Delen's got some records about how they conducted the war that the Minbari remember.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too. We have internal division with the Minbari, between the warrior caste and the religious caste. And as far as we know, there's not really any outside involvement in that internal division, right?
Yeah.
It's just a thing that's happening. They're schisming themselves. But when you look at the humans, there is a lot of internal division as well, we find out very early in the season. And it's not all just humans being humans.
No, we find out about the Shadows and Psycor and all of President Clark's machinations in full.
Yeah.
By the end of season 2 and the start of season 3, which leads to the martial law, and then the colonies rebelling, and then Babylon 5 splitting off. And then after Babylon 5 splits off, there's like one or two little mentions of like things back home here or there. But they do a really good job of making Earth feel very distant.
Mm-hmm. Especially because we have alien ships around Babylon 5 that we see like defending that neutrality. And so we don't just see any more like Earth cruisers trying to roll up and, institute that martial law again or something.
So it leads to a very different feeling when you think about Earth now compared to Earth then. Because it's not that humans as a species are the bad guy, but Earth Gov definitely is.
Yeah, it's crawling with bad guys as far as we know.
Yeah.
Because we've seen Mr. Morden in their offices.
Yeah.
And we know what Mr. Morden's all about.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting juxtaposition. It's one of the things I really appreciate about Babylon 5 is it's not humans are not the good guys.
Right. It's not just
humans are the heroes for the most part. Our senior staff are all human. And obviously there are other main characters that are good guys, as it were. But just that knowing that exists, that juxtaposition between our senior staff and the rest of the human government and what you would normally be considering like, oh, well, humanity's kind of shitty.
Yeah, there's a lot of shades of gray in this show. And recognizing that we're all complex. Not everything is black and white, easy, good guys, bad guys. I appreciate that in the narrative.
Yeah. And we find out what the fucking Shadows are about. Which I will reference myself. They have a 15-year-old's understanding of someone who's read The Dust Jacket of Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah. Chaos is a ladder.
Right. Yeah, it's just... Ugh.
Yeah, we started out this season with them to be very obvious with it. They're in the shadows. They're not open. They're kind of just slinking around in hyperspace, hitting stuff here and there. We know they've helped the Centauri do stuff, but they're not super out there yet. But by the end of the season, we have openly outed them on Zahadum. And we're also not hiding from them anymore. We were also trying to like hide ourselves, our main characters, our major races that knew about them. We're trying to hide their knowledge. No, it's all out on the table now. Yeah. We're ready to
all
fight
out on the table
guys.
In a smoking crater.
Yeah.
And then the Vorlons.
Yeah.
They finally do something.
Indeed.
And then fuck off promptly.
Yeah. We lost our main representative in an act of self-sacrifice, right? He agreed to help knowing that it was going to kill him.
Yeah.
And then it did. And, we've seen pieces of him left over, so we know that Vorlons aren't necessarily just gone when they die. And we've seen the new Vorlon, but we haven't seen much of him. We've seen him kind of be mean to Lita, I think, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Not Kosh. What do we call him? Kosh.0.
Yeah, Kosh.0. Just a judgmental douchebag who brings up your failures on TV. Kosh.0.
Seems legit. Yeah.
Oh, that was still so good. I'm so jealous of that wit. It's such a good line. I think that's all the major players.
Yeah, that's all the major races. And then, the only other like group would be the League of Non-Aligned Worlds, right? And we've seen them actually kind of coalescing.
They're kind of the League of Aligned Worlds now.
Yeah.
Good
they're
for
aligning.
Them. Yep.
Congrats.
Well, we had a bunch of themes this season, like we do every season. Mm-hmm. So we should probably talk about those a minute before we get into some viewer responses. I got 2 big themes for this season that I wrote down.
Yeah.
Rising stakes and the payoff, as I'm calling it, TM. Rising stakes is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, we open on like Marcus escaping a Centauri-occupied world and end on Sheridan nuking the Shadow's capital on Sahadum. Like,
yeah, we're just the upping the ante.
Escalates.
Yeah, constantly raise it. Yeah.
But the big thing for this season is the payoff, because we are finally at a point in the story, being more than halfway through, where we are answering more questions than we are asking on a regular basis.
Uh-huh.
And this is how you fucking do television, people.
Yeah.
The halfway point is when you start answering questions, and you can ask new ones still, and the show does, but it makes a point of answering more than it's asked. You do this at this point, the midpoint.
Yes.
Not the last season, Lost, or the last 2 episodes, no names mentioned, currently airing Sci-Fi Star Trek show.
Yep. I have had some trouble with this particular show.
I went off on the Discord today. Today was the penultimate episode of Picard, and there was a rather lively spoiler-filled conversation waiting for you after you watch it, Laura. I'm not going to say anything else.
I'm staying off the Discord until later tonight. Yeah, I don't think it's a big major spoiler to say that the final season of Picard has had a lot of questions, and it's taken a while to answer them. I don't think that's spoilers.
And I mean, there's a ton of shows that do this too.
Yeah.
We'll be frustrated by this when we switch over to Battlestar Galactica in a couple years.
Yeah.
So
it can't be as bad as Picard.
Well, it's not.
Maybe.
I'll say that definitively.
Oh, well, I mean, I didn't mean that Picard is bad. I meant that the tension that they've ramped up and not answering questions has been difficult. I'm not going to put a value judgment on the Picard.
Yeah, I'm not going to say which is worse currently because Picard still has one more episode.
True. You can't judge yet.
I can't say that. And also, I don't want to ruin anything in Battlestar. I don't want to put a negative taste in your mouth before you watch it.
Yeah. Okay.
So, themes. Season 3. What do you got?
Well, I kind of have themes that are maybe sub-themes, because you picked some very nice, big, overarching themes. One thing that I wanted to talk about was, there's a lot of Earth entanglement, especially in the first half of the season, where we see, the Earth is going full fascist. We see the fascist playbook where we take over the media that's out there. Really control the narrative. We see our main characters struggle a lot, and they lose a lot while they're trying to maintain their own ethics. They lose family back home, and, Sheridan's not able to talk to his parents and worries about them. And it's not just the fascism, but we also have the telepath angle, especially because we dipped into that a little bit in book club, that we kind of know that, hey, telepaths, not a natural thing. And they're becoming a battleground between the older races that we're seeing hinted at, that they were created to fight the shadows, and the shadows have found a way to weaponize them and use them. And that's a very vulnerable population in our human species with Earth. And this isn't a plot line that's just going to fizzle out. Like, telepaths are going to be a thing. So they've really laid a lot of groundwork for this. So I had that. I had Earth entanglements. And then, we get so much Minbari history, and that all weaves into Earth as well. Just most of Earth doesn't know about it yet. Yep. So those were some big themes for me. And then we also, we have other season-long themes that are not as not episode to episode, not as defined, but we had like Franklin's addiction was a big long plot.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a long walk to borrow from Walkabout to get to, from his original Sims problem to his resolution. And then it wasn't super satisfying for me. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a little more of the personal side.
All right. So we had a little bit of viewer mail. We're recording on a very accelerated time frame because somebody's about to have a baby.
Yeah, this is my fault.
It didn't mean it to point a finger.
Well,
I figured it was pretty obvious the way it was which one of us it was.
Yeah. Like any minute now. We should probably hurry up, actually.
Right. Yeah, it might maybe right now. So we don't have a ton of feedback, but we did have a couple things we got on the Discord and over email that we want to read about season 3 or generic thoughts. So Shellock on the Discord. Keep up the good work. It's fun to listen to both of you analyze. Season 3 was probably the best of B5, at most good, and least bad amount of episodes. Mm-hmm. That said, 4 and 5 still have some great episode moments and speeches to come. 100% agree. We talked about this right off the top. Season 3 is just fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there are going to be some good speeches to come. I agree. Mm-hmm. Can't wait. Okay, so next we had an email from Superfan Ben. He says, "Hello, who are you? Congratulations on finishing season 3. It has been an absolute treat going through this season with you. As someone who binged the whole show as you all started, it's now getting into that memory/nostalgia zone of thinking back on a show I watched a year ago. As for season 3, I think it's my favorite season. Funny how many sci-fi shows need 2 seasons of building up steam to get chugging. That's the truth, isn't it?"
Yeah.
Well, we will never know what seasons 4 and 5 could have been had they been left to JMS's devices. I can see the promise of season 3 and how great the show can be when it's telling those great long-term stories. I will agree with the sentiment of the hosts that I just love Marcus. Yeah, we really do.
Mm-hmm. He's great.
And I feel that he's a great addition to the show, though I do feel a little bit of character bloat as it goes on. Okay. It's hard to find the right balance between a show that has the community level of we've got a deep character roster and we can insert Leonard and Garrett in at any time, and the happy days of we forgot there is an older brother. Oops. That's accurate, yeah. There are times I can really feel the show straining to give some of our B-team characters things to do, and it can be really a bummer because the characters are so well written for the most part that when Veer, Lanier, Alan, or Talia and Lita get some short shrift, it can be a bummer. Why we get a boxing episode and not a day in the life of our 3 aides is such a bummer for me. That's a crime.
Right.
We should have had a day in the life of them. Why Natoth just disappears and is uncommented on for so long is a bummer. And while I know he's a favorite punching bag, I do actually miss Kiefer because I appreciate having human characters doing their specific jobs. With Sinclair, it made sense for him to lead a fighter wing, but when it's, we need to have a small space battle, I guess the chief of police is in charge now. Feels crazy in a well-defined world such as B5. Yeah. This isn't Trek where we can just put anyone in a shuttle and have a space battle. It's supposed to be a structured, regimented world, and having a former capital ship commander jump in a fighter feels weird. Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
In conclusion, I'm so very excited for season 4. And 5 when we can look back and no longer ask, who are you? But what happened to her? Sincerely, Ben.
And we have one more letter from Francis. Loving the pod. Thanks so much for sharing your creation with us. I was listening to your episode's Shenanigans Potential, and you were discussing a never shot scene where Londo approaches Jakar with his plan for Lord Rifa's betrayal. Uh-huh. You were also wondering the timeline of when Jakar knew the full plan. On my rewatch, I noticed a bit of great acting done when Veer approaches Jakar's door. Jakar's face goes from recognition to disappointment to annoyance in less than a second as he waves Veer into the room. My mind immediately whispered, "He knows," like a Romulan discovering a doctored hologram. Anyways, hope you're all well. Keep them coming, and I'll keep listening. Francis, Adventure Maximus. This is a signature there.
Yeah.
Adventure Maximus.
I like that. It's cute.
So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you
Very nice.
for the letter, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts. I'm sorry we didn't have as much time to let everybody know this time.
Yeah. I think we even called it, we probably called it on the air a little early, that we thought by this time this was airing, we would have already recorded this episode.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. Sometimes time is weird.
We have one last bit here for this
the most
episode.
Important bit.
It's my favorite part of these season recap episodes, and it's Who is the One? Where we're going to run down a list and say our one thing for the season that falls into whatever we had just previously defined.
Yeah. Some little categories.
And we start with who is the one best reoccurring character? There's a lot of contenders for this.
There are. Yeah, we get a lot of repeats.
And so I'm going to pick the one that won't be coming back. And that's Kosh.
Oh, okay.
Because this is really the season where Kosh's like random bullshit thought speech vomit actually makes sense. And then you go back and you're like, wait, it actually made sense the whole time. And you're just like, it's so good.
Yeah, Kosh had a real moment this season. And he kept, even after he was gone, he kept showing back up because there's that piece that we kept hearing from, you know? I picked another best recurring character that I think is also not coming back. I'm not 100% sure. You've seen it more recently than I have. But I think Brother Theo's not coming back in season 4.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I could be wrong, so please don't hop all over me, guys, if I didn't remember this correctly. But I feel like this might be it for Brother Theo. And I wanted almost more Brother Theo. Like, we could have used him and developed him a little bit more, but he was such a fun actor, very interesting. The monks themselves were such a cool idea to be on Babylon 5. So I give best recurring to Brother Theo. I appreciate him. All right, what's up next?
Who is the one character with the most growth?
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, most growth I have to give to Jakar.
Yeah.
Especially for that transformation from who we saw him in Convictions all the way to, I think, Shadow Dancing is where we get a really good moment with him.
And the Rock Cried Out, yeah.
Yeah, and the Rock Cried Out and then into Shadow Dancing, because I think in the Rock Cried Out, obviously, we know what he's up to. He's not beating Rifa to death, but not beating Rifa to death.
Yeah.
And then I think we get him like leading some ships in to help the battle in Shadow Dancing.
Yeah.
I might be mixing up my episodes. I'm sorry if I am, but
he definitely comes in to save the day in an armed heavy cruiser at one point.
Exactly. Yes. So I feel like the man that he was in Convictions versus the man he is at the end, very, very different. And obviously it was a little bit of a drug trip and it was a little bit of a touched by a Vorlon, but you know, he's had some major epiphanies.
For sure. I knew you were going to pick Jakar.
Uh-huh.
And I agree with Jakar as a choice.
Yeah.
But I wanted to have another name ready.
I totally understand, yeah.
So I'm going with Sheridan.
Okay. Tell us about Sheridan's growth.
He really comes into his own this season. You know, he comes in and he's fed up that he's just like this guy who's commanded like deep space exploration vessels of like 100 people, and now he's running a city of 250,000 people. And they're very different jobs that require very different skill sets. And the only reason he's here is because the president thinks he's a war hawk.
Yeah. Ouch.
Right? Yeah, and he's not. He hates that. He hates that reputation. And so knowing that makes it even worse. And he really starts to deal with it in season 2, but season 3 is like he steps into the role. He becomes the leader of not just Babylon 5 and not just the city, but of the intergalactic alliance, you know, the Army of Light. And so that transformation really happens here, turns him into the person that he will be for seasons 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have the growth that he experiences in this season, he is not the person he needs to be for later.
Yeah, totally. I buy that too.
All right.
Okay, who is the one best guest actor that you had for this season?
I will wholly admit that I'm probably a little bit inspired by the events of that earlier mentioned show.
Uh-huh.
And this is the teensiest spoiler, and so I'm so sorry. But obviously, Brad Dourif was great, but I'm going to give it to Majel Barrett.
Oh, yeah.
Hearing the whole story about why she made a point of coming on Babylon 5, reaching out to JMS, being like, no, sci-fi nerds are family. Like, we should not be fighting. There shouldn't be this stupid Star Trek Babylon 5 thing. I'm going to go on Babylon 5 because it will make the statement. And then also just like the part she plays, and the character is a lot of fun. And she does probably some of the best acting work in her career. Luxwana's fun when she shows up, but as a character, the acting's a bit rough, if I'm being needlessly mean about it. But she really does a good job with the acting in this one, I felt. So that's my pick for best guest actor.
Yeah, I wrote down 2 here because I thought if Xhafer picks one of these, I'll pick the other. And of course, Majel Barrett was one of my 2.
Yeah.
Because I want us to have stuff to talk about and not just agree with each other all the time.
Yeah.
So I will pick Michael York for his appearance as King Arthur. Because I love Michael York.
He does great.
He does great. And he brings out such a beautiful, fun side of Jakar. And we get to see him and Andreas just ham it up and, destroy some bad guys and then drink and have fun. It was very touching. I really enjoyed that. But yes, Majel Barrett was very important, and I really appreciate her, not stoking the fires between fandoms.
Yeah.
That's very mature, and I like that about her. But Michael York also gave us a wonderful performance. And then, of course, my runner-up was Brad Dourif for passing through Gethsemane, because that episode was great. He was great.
He's great. It's a great episode. I've already given the accolades to that episode, so I wasn't going to do it twice.
Yeah.
Which I say right before best one-off character, my pick is King Arthur.
Yeah.
Because Michael York was fucking great. And the character is also just so interesting to me. Because, best guest actor and best one-off character are pretty close.
Yeah.
When we're talking about topics. And, I will say Majel Barrett's character, not particularly interesting, but great job with the acting and everything else around it. But King Arthur as the character.
Yeah.
So fucking interesting to me.
Yeah.
But Michael York is also excellent in that role. Honestly, I got a very similar vibe from a completely different and unrelated piece of media recently from when Michael York was on that episode. There is a game show on Dropout, which is the streaming service that came from the ashes of College Humor.
Okay.
Called Game Changer. And it is a game show where the game changes every time.
Oh, no.
And it's great, and it's one of the best. It's definitely the best game show I've probably ever watched. It's excellent, and part of the game is figuring out what's going on. And there was an episode in season 3 where all of the people that were on it were like, oh, of the College Humor people, you're the best actors, right? So do this scene for me. And they all do the scene, and then he's all like, oh, well, the twist this time is, surprise, here's Juan Carlo Esposito, who's going to do all of these scenes you just did. And then based off how much better he does them than you, I'm deducting points from each of you.
Oh, no.
And what you see happen very quickly are these 3 people who are not... I mean, Juan Carlo Esposito is an excellent actor. A real master of his craft, right? And the College Humor people are goodish.
Yeah.
But they start kind of miserably. You know, like their first takes before they see Juan Carlo Esposito do them are not great. And over the progression of the episode, you see each of them elevate their acting craft just from watching him do the same stuff as them.
Yeah.
And it felt a lot like, you know, you hear actors talk about how a great actor can bring out the best acting ability of everyone around them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Andreas is a great actor.
Mm-hmm.
But working with Michael York,
yes,
the two of them playing off each other, like you said, it's that elevation. It's that when you're working with someone who's that much of a master of their craft, that it just brings everyone around them up. And it definitely felt like that in that episode, where everyone's acting just got better after that episode.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also with Marcus, he had a lot to do with Marcus in that episode too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you see it in both of them, Jason Carter and Andreas.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I also couldn't help myself. And best one-off character, I just wrote down King Arthur. Didn't even.
It's great.
I couldn't come up with a better one because it is so memorable. I remembered everything about that season, and I love a nice historical legend tie-in to a sci-fi plot, like bringing that property, that intellectual thought that's been around for, you know, hundreds of years, and bringing it into our modern tales. It's just fun. I always love that.
And it felt so much better than when it was Jack the Ripper in season 2.
Yeah, that didn't feel good. That one felt kind of icky. This one was a feel good. Even though we did deal with like a heavy post-traumatic stress disorder kind of topic, we got there by kind of like swords and stuff, and that was kind of fun. So, what was your one favorite bit this season?
My favorite bit was Marcus and Ivanova's breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
And all of the like little stuff around that, with like the flour going to the wrong place, all of the stuff around that whole comedy of errors over the course of, was it one episode or two even? I think it ends one, picks up as the cold open in the next one. That whole thing with Marcus and Ivanova is my favorite bit of the season. They're great. That's a really fun bit. I think that's probably, I don't know. I'm not going to say something else because it might be your bit, I feel like.
I was going to say, you really scared me, because my bit that was my favorite was
the pillows.
The Ivanova and the bed.
Yep.
The Minbari beds and the pillows. And you started out with Marcus and Ivanova, and I thought, oh no, he's stolen my bit.
Honestly, I was going to bring that up as the second half, and I saw the look on your face, and I'm all like, oh, nope, no, wait, nope, stop, okay.
I love a little bit of physical comedy sometimes, especially because that was kind of like a heavy thing we were out there doing, right? We were scouting for shadows, and it was very tense. And, you know, we've got this bed that she winds up totally sliding off of, and it's a good little physical comedy ad. I feel like Babylon 5 adds good comedy sometimes, and that was my favorite, like, physical moment.
And honestly, I haven't seen it, but Ryan, because that was the episode with Yum Yum, Ryan had mentioned that, like, he's got the widescreen DVDs, and you see the page lift the bed to, like, knock Ivanova down just out of frame. Oh, I need to see it!
Yeah. It's just so good.
Yeah. All right. Do you have a best stepdad moment?
Yeah, I know that we came up with this idea out of, you know, we had the best Sinclair dad moment. And then we had stepdad show up on the scene.
Yeah.
And maybe he's not feeling a stepdaddy anymore, but
I would agree.
Yeah. Like he's growing into something else, right? But I think there's a good stepdaddish moment that comes up early in the season, and that would be toward the end of the episode Passing Through Gethsemane, when Brother Theo brings in the new monk, who is the mind-wiped criminal who tortured and destroyed Brad Dourif.
Yeah.
Who, you know, Sheridan had gotten to feel rather protective of that little monk. And he has to deal with some big feelings really fast about this new monk. And Brother Theo sort of reminds him, like, this is what we do. Like, he is not the same person anymore. He's forgiven. He's a monk now. And, kind of, you're going to have to deal with it, Sheridan. And I thought that was a big sort of moment, that stepdads might have where they have to confront something and they don't like it, but they've got to grow in a big way. And I think he does from that moment. So that would be my stepdad moment. What about yours?
I don't have a stepdad moment.
Okay.
Because I don't think he's stepdad anymore. I think he's dad now.
Okay.
But I also didn't pick a best dad moment. I picked a best widowed dad going on an awkward date moment.
Okay, yeah. There's that too.
Which is like when he's with Delenn and Delen's talking about her dad not being able to pick her up anymore.
Yeah.
I think trying to keep in the spirit of it, I feel like that was as close as we got, where he, it's kind of like the getting out there again and the opening yourself up to someone and then having someone open themselves up in return.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's definitely a divorced or widowed dad kind of moment.
Vibe, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a one moment that you wished Sinclair was here?
It's not really a moment, but it was a whole subplot, and it's Walkabout.
Okay. All right.
Because honestly, does Walkabout even happen? Or does Sinclair just be all like, hey, Franklin, knock off the fucking stims before it's even a problem?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does
he
he
have
the vibe
the hard
I
conversation and not ignore the problem?
Yes, because Sheridan will ignore a problem that's not the most pressing problem in front of him. If everything's running okay, then there must not be anything wrong with it. That's Sheridan's way.
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
But also Sinclair was a lot more personally involved with people.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely, the senior staff felt less like subordinates to Sinclair than they do Sheridan. And so I think he would have taken a more active personal role in Franklin's life and seen the problem and been all like, hey, you need to knock it the fuck off. And it would either not have gotten to the point where it was a problem or it would have been handled much more succinctly and differently.
Okay.
Rather than Franklin feeling like he needs to fuck off for a month and a half.
Yeah. I think they tried to get some of that feeling with Garibaldi, but Garibaldi is no Sinclair.
Yeah. How about you? What moment do you wish Sinclair was here for? Besides the moments he was.
Besides the moments he was. Just give me that whole episode all over again. No, I kind of wished that we had Sinclair when we're going through the stuff in Severed Dreams, where we're getting the bombing of Mars. Because Garibaldi and Sinclair seem to have a little bit more personal historical connection to Mars.
Yeah.
Than Sheridan. I think we get Sheridan mentioning like some friends, quotation marks, because we made some jokes about what kind of friends those were on Mars. But it's not as personal as we know Garibaldi and Sinclair have been there. And I believe it was where they met.
Yeah.
And,
when they were stationed there.
We even have the story about them being like on the surface of Mars and seeing the shadow ship.
The whole deal.
Rising there. So I feel like that the bombing of Mars plot might have felt a little more personal if we had Sinclair and his touch there. Again, they tried to give it to us through Garibaldi, and Garibaldi worrying about his ex-girlfriend there or whatever. But yeah, I just wanted Sinclair for that. Maybe more emotional impact.
Good call. All right. Well, that's season 3. We made it. We'll be back next week with book club.
Yeah.
I haven't finished it yet, but
I'm not done yet, but I will be before we get there.
I have already read more of this one than I did last one. And I don't want to be the guy who's got a book club segment on his podcast and he's never finished the fucking book. So I'm going to really try.
Yeah. Well, this one's all about baby Bester so far.
Yes, so. He is. I'm past that part actually.
Yeah, he's not a baby anymore, but I feel like, Bester's what in the show, like in his 70s is what we calculated.
Yeah, he is older than. Well, I mean, he's older than Walter Koenig, but not by much. I think is what we came out to. Mm-hmm. Bester is like, I want to say, in his late teens, possibly early 20s, where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think we're about at the same spot then.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's still a baby. We're in our late 30s now. We can call them babies.
So we'll be talking about that next week, and then we're going to go on a break, and then we'll be back with season 4.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're going to get some really exciting episodes.
Thank you to Jeremy Siegel, who still hasn't accepted my friend request on Facebook.
Whoa. I think you're being snubbed.
A little bit. Feels like it. He even liked something the other day, and I had to check with Ben to see if that was the episode I called him out on the air about it, and it wasn't. So.
Oh. Yeah.
Nah, I think that one just is either hit this week or next week. It's fine, Jeremy. Really, yeah. It's funny to me at this point. Right. But thank you for our lovely theme music. Really do appreciate you a great deal. You can find more of Jeremy's work at jeremysiegel42.bandcamp.com and on Spotify as Nuclear Jaguar, and listen to those monthly album challenges. They're great.
Yeah. At this point, I think he has 3 out. I think we've got January, February, and March at this point. Yeah. And thank you to Angry Duck Time Machine on Instagram for our podcast artwork.
Thank you to Yum Yum Podcast, Ryan and Rachel, and then Scott from Gray 17 for joining us this season.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we already talked a bit about where I think we've already got an episode picked out for Scott to come back.
Mm-hmm. So we can get
Ben's going to be joining us in a couple episodes into season 4.
Yeah.
Yum Yum, we'd love to have you guys back. That was excellent. Any of our fellow League of Non-Aligned podcasts, if you've listened to this podcast and you want to be on ours, we'd love to have you.
Mm-hmm.
Come and talk about your show for a bit, and just, the B5 community in general. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
And then all of our fans, the people who listen to this podcast every week, the people who interact on our Discord and talk shit about Picard Season 3 with me, I appreciate the shit out of all of you. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. It's a crazy thing to think about. It's very surreal sometimes. So we really appreciate the community. Thank you so much. Recommend us to a friend if you think they want to listen to us blab on about Babylon 5 like you do. Some reviews on your favorite podcatcher, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It makes a world of difference to us. So thank you so much for all of it.
Yeah. And last but not least, thank you to Aaron for editing this episode, because it's going to be a little tough in spots.
Doozy. We said our password out loud. It's a problem.
Hopefully that's not in the final cut. Thanks. All right. So we'll be back with book club and then season 4 of Babylon 5.
A couple weeks after that. Yeah. Take care, Internet. Have a good one.
Bye.